Act, being Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, Laws of the State of New Jersey, the Planning Board Secretary has prepared a schedule of the meeting of the Planning Board of the Borough of Kenilworth for the year 2020, and has posted a true copy of this schedule on the bulletin board located at the front entrance of Borough Hall, and has mailed true copies of this schedule to the local source, the Star Ledger, and that is maintaining a copy of this schedule in Borough Hall. Accordingly, the notice requirements of this Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied in regards to this meeting. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next thing on the agenda was Councilman Lopez, but he was ill tonight, and so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Roll call, please.
Mr. Paserno?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Grimaldi?
Here.
Mr. Cantina?
Here.
Mr. Mazzio?
Here.
Mr. Ladowdy?
Here.
Mr. Colella?
Here.
Mr. Scuderi?
Here.
Mr. Zaharchek?
Here.
And Mr. McConnell?
Here.
Okay. Any communications?
None, Chairman.
Seeing none, we'll move forward with the resolution application 2-20.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir?
We missed approval of July 9th
Minutes.
minutes.
Oh, I did, didn't I? I'm sorry. I skipped right over that. Could we have a motion for the approval of the July 9th to 20 meetings? Minutes, I should say. Motion made by Mr. Grimaldi, second by, who's that over there?
Mr. Scuderi?
Mr. Scuderi. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Communications?
None.
Okay. Resolution, application 2-20, 121 South Michigan Avenue, Block 131, Lot 13. I think, Kathy, in order for us to vote on this, it's got to be the members that were here or heard that case, am I correct?
Yes.
So you have that list available?
This is for RJ.
Yes, RJB,
Yes, I have a list.
I'm sorry?
I have a list.
Okay, then it's,
You want to first and second it? The resolution?
yeah, I was just bringing it to your attention.
I got it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the application number 220.
Okay, motion was made by Mr. David, seconded by Mr. Mazzio. Roll call, please. Only those who were here to hear that case.
Mr. David?
Yes.
Mr. Cantina?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzio?
Yes.
Mr. Ladowdy?
Yes.
Mr. Colella?
Yes.
And Mr. Scuderi?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. The next application is number 380, Blue Blade Steel, 109 North 8th Street, Block 60, Lot 101. A motion to approve this application, please.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Ladowdy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Grimaldi. Roll call, please. Only those who heard this case.
Mr. David?
Yes.
Mr. Grimaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Cantina?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzio?
Yes.
Mr. Ladowdy?
Yes.
Mr. Colella?
Yes.
And Mr. Scuderi?
Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. Any old business that we need to discuss? Seeing none, let's move into application 20-01, 320 FDV Realty, 207 North 15th Street, Block 33, Lot 2-02. Mr. Freed, how we doing?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here. I confess it is the first time in 6 months I put on a suit and tie. No, that's literally true. Everything's been by Zoom. So this is, do I turn this around or?
I don't know how to, I think you need to, do we need to turn that around?
Every 5 minutes you need to rotate.
Yeah, we need to rotate that.
So you get the whole world.
Thank you. And why don't you sit back in our area? Okay, put that up on the easel, that'd be great. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thanks for hearing us this evening. It is a pleasure to be here in person, something new and different in these strange times. My name is Donald B. Fraser Jr. I'm a member of the law firm of Borough, Fraser & Forrester of Clark, New Jersey. It's my pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of the applicant, FDV Realty LLC. If the board will require it, I have 3 witnesses present with me this evening, and Mr. Ed Deck, our engineer, who I don't really anticipate that I'll need to call, but he's here if there are any questions that would be relevant from an engineering perspective that the board or any of its professionals may need answered. I have Mr. Vincent Paparato, who is the principal of FDB Realty, and I have a professional planner, Mr. Nick Ravana, with us to address the planning criteria on this application, and particularly, I think, the contents of Mr. O'Brien's report. The application in question is very simple. It's a 100-foot by 100-foot square. The applicant proposes to subdivide it into two 50 by 100-foot lots. Each one of those lots will be fully conforming in all respects with your zoning ordinance. The reason we're here is because the use of those two units as two families requires, as per your ordinance, 7,500 square feet per lot rather than 5,000 square feet per lot. So the application to put a two-family on each of those lots, again, conforming in all respects to all the setbacks and the open space and FAR and what have you. The zone says 5,000 square feet, excuse me, 7,500 square feet for a two-family. Oddly enough, the zone also says 50-foot width. Given that in this entire area, everything is 100 feet deep, including the subject lot, from the perspective of the applicant, that does not entirely make a lot of sense. It is the applicant's request and position this evening, and an application for a variance, that the construction of the two-family houses be permitted as part of this subdivision. I'm perfectly happy to call Mr. Paparato if the board has questions of Mr. Paparato. We do have with us a proposed elevation of what the two families would look like. If the board and the members of the public would like to see it, we can do that. But if that's not necessary, I'm also perfectly happy to just proceed with the plan and testimony. So I'm at the board's pleasure.
Well, at this point, Mr. Fraser, I think maybe you can continue, and I'm sure the board has a multitude of questions based on the way the ordinance reads. And in addition to that, we understand that this is a two-family zone which requires a 75 by 100. But we also know that the surrounding homes that are there are two families on a 50 by 100 lot.
Actually, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I don't actually think that the zone says 75 by 100. I think what the zone says, it says 50 wide, but 7,500 bulk.
Correct. I stand corrected.
I'm not trying to be pedantic.
No.
But that's sort of the struggle that I have with looking at the ordinance, is because the ordinance says 7,500 square feet for a two-family.
Right. But it does say 7,500
It also
square feet.
says 50 wide. And part of the application is, well, wait a minute, if it says 50 wide, then you're saying it's got to be 150 deep. And where, pray tell, would those 150 deep lots be in the R5A zone? Because I don't think there are any. So that's a preview of that argument. So with that having been said, maybe the first thing to do...
Can I just interrupt you before you move on?
By all means, sir.
I'm going to hear Mr. Grimaldi has a question.
Okay.
If we're getting to that point of questioning about you saying 75, again, it says 50 feet minimum. And yes, it definitely does say 7,500. And we as a board made that point very known that it was supposed to be 7,500. Although there's people in town and people on council that have said, oh, that was a typo. To the point where a council member started yelling in a meeting about a year ago in reference to that ordinance, but it is definitely 7,500, and this board did not make a mistake by making it 7,500. It was not a typo, it wasn't a clerical error, it was something that we did. And I don't like the statement by the lawyer stating that everything is in compliance. No, it's not in compliance, because they're coming here with a two-family. So don't represent to the public or the board that this is in compliance. It's not compliance, you wouldn't be here otherwise. If you'd like to do two single-family homes, beautiful, then there you go, you don't have to be here. Well, you would, but it would be different.
Well, I don't want to, Mr. David, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, I mean, since it's starting to come up now, I'll just also read from the master plan, page 43, which says new two-family homes. All new two-family homes shall require larger lot sizes of 7,500 square feet with a maximum density of 11.6 units per acre. So that's clearly stated, the lot size should be 7,500 again.
Not a typo.
Not a typo, it's in the master plan. Yep.
I think it's respectfully slightly premature for the
Yeah,
board,
that's what I thought, but anyways.
for the board to be
Why don't we continue? Start the
essentially
case.
arguing against it before I made my application. I think clearly, Mr. Chairman, we're here for a variance. We're here for a bulk variance. What I said was, we're in compliance with everything except this.
There you go.
There you go. And in fact, the matter is still that the zone says 50-foot wide is conforming. The zone does not say 75-foot wide. It just doesn't. I agree with Mr. David. The master plan says 7,500 square feet. That's why we're here.
So I guess what you're trying to explain is that...
The fact that it's in the master plan, though, does not prove that it is a typo, does not prove that it's not a typo. Because the master plan could, I don't know if it does, but it could have a typo. I don't know. I'm not going to argue that point because we're here for a variance. But the fact of the matter still is, and I will be making this argument, but as the preview, the fact of the matter is, all right, if the intent really is that you're supposed to have a 50-foot minimum width for a two-family, and you are also required to have a 7,500 minimum size for a two-family, simple mathematics tells us that if we comply with the 50 width, that must mean we're talking lots 150 in depth. And the fact of the matter is, and I don't live in the borough of Kenilworth, I appreciate that, and I have occasionally worked here in this town, but insofar as I'm aware, in the entirety of the R5A zone, these 150-foot lots are the veritable unicorn. The lot depth is 100 feet throughout. So if this is not a, quote, typo in either the master plan or the zoning ordinance, one must then question, what was the intent? Because where are these lots that are contemplated by the master plan? That having been said, I appreciate where the proverbial battle lines are drawn on this subject. I'm happy to now call the planner and to present the evidentiary basis for the relief that we seek, which I do concede is a bulk variance. So with that, with the board's pleasure, I will call Mr. Brennan.
Would anyone like to comment on that? No. Are you okay with that? Okay. We'll come back to you, though, Mr. Frazier. Thank you.
I have no doubt. So I call Nick Raviano.
You want to swear him in, please?
Could you raise your right hand, please? With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is true?
Yes.
I think you've appeared in front of us before as a planner.
That is correct.
And I think the board has accepted you, but for the record, could you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Yes, my first name is Nicholas with an H, last name Graviano, G-R-A, V as in Victor, I-A-N-O. I am a planner and partner with Graviano and Gillis Architects and Planners with a business address of 101 Crawford's Corner Road in Holmdel, New Jersey.
And your licenses are still in green pack?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have a problem.
Mr. Mr. who?
Swear me up.
Yes. You swear me?
I did. Oh, Kevin. Christian.
I'm sorry.
Gentlemen, with regard to any matter this evening, do you swear the testimony you may give shall be the truth so help you God?
I do.
And that was our planner, Kevin O'Brien, and Christian Cueto, our engineer. Thank you.
Mr. Graviano, would you take us through the planning considerations with regard to requesting grant of the bulk variance?
Yes, before I do that, I would like to distribute an exhibit that'll help put the neighborhood context in perspective. This is an exhibit called Area Conditions, Block 33, Lot 2.02, Kenilworth, New Jersey, 207 North 15th Street, prepared by my office, dated September 10th, 2020. And I guess we'll call this A1.
Or application A1?
A1, if you have enough for everyone?
I have 15 copies.
You may want to,
Thank you.
I'm assuming the public is here for this matter, so if you could give one copy to the public as well.
I'm trying to ID the board members with the masks on.
Thank you. Board members, stick your hands up.
Rich, you have a hand up.
I had this up, I'm sure.
All right. So A1 was prepared by you under your direction, Mr. Graviano?
Yes, it was prepared by myself personally.
All right. And could you describe what is depicted on A1?
Yes, A1 depicts two images. The first image is the borough tax map with the established land uses along North 15th Street. This exhibit only looks at North 15th Street between Sheridan and Monroe. The second image, which is similar to what is found in the board planner's letter, is an aerial photography taken from Google Maps of the subject area. So those, I'll be getting into those as I get into my testimony. As you heard from applicant's counsel, the applicant is requesting minor subdivision approval with associated C variance for the lot size to accommodate the proposed two-family dwellings on the parcel. The applicant, as previously stated, will comply with all other bulk, height, and other requirements that are specified by the district. When you look at this neighborhood, the subject property is located on North 15th Street between Sheridan and Monroe. This is a neighborhood that's characterized by a mixture of uses, single-family residential, two-family residential. There's the municipal uses, which is the Little League field, as well as the DPW uses. The prominent residential development type of North 15th Street between those two streets is two-family dwellings. 8 of the other 10 residential parcels in the street segment are two-family dwellings. So when you drive down the street, this is a two-family residential street. There's one single-family residential dwelling on the entire street, which is in Block 33, Lot 1. All the other homes are two-family houses. So when you look at this in context of the applicant's proposal, this is not a substantial departure from the established land uses in the area. All of the other developed residential dwellings, except for the one house on the corner, have two-family dwellings on lot sizes that are 1, less than 7,500 square feet, and 2, less than a lot width of 75 feet. So when you analyze this application, the applicant's request for the bulk variance for the lot size, this is a C2 scenario where in an application relating to a specific piece of property, the applicant would demonstrate advancement of the purposes of the municipal land use law, as well as showing that there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. So when you look at those various components, with respect to this relating to a specific piece of property, here you have Block 33, Lot 2.02, a vacant parcel consisting of 10,000 square feet along a street that contains primarily two-family dwellings, as well as municipal uses of the municipal Little League field and the DPW complex. In terms of the advancement of the municipal land use law, this proposal helps advance 3 purposes of zoning in the municipal land use law. The first purpose, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of lands in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. In this instance, you have construction of housing built to modern standards. Of the borough's roughly 3,000 housing units, the median age of such housing is 1956, and 68% of the borough's housing stock was built before 1959. So this is an introduction of modern housing designed to current building code and modern building standards. This proposal also helps advance Purpose G to provide sufficient space and appropriate location for a variety of residential uses to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. This is a zone that permits two-family dwellings, and this established neighborhood consists of two-family dwellings on less than 7,500 square foot lots. This is a neighborhood with excellent proximity to parks. There's transit bus service within a block from this parcel, and there's also educational facilities within walking distance of the property. Lastly, this proposal helps advance Purpose I to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. This is certainly a proposal that's consistent with the design and arrangement of the established neighborhood, and the introduction of a new house, of new houses on this location will promote a positive streetscape. Now, moving on to the negative criteria, the applicant must show that the benefits of the deviation would outweigh any detriment, and there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance, or any detriment to the surrounding community as a whole. And as I stated previously, this is certainly something that's in keeping with the established development pattern. And that this zone permits the two-family dwellings on a lot width that the applicant is providing. So here you have an applicant that, 1, is meeting the required lot width of the district, and 2, is providing the required yard setbacks to the neighboring property owners. So while the applicant does not meet the required 7,500 square feet of the district, the applicant is meeting lot width, and the applicant is meeting the rear yard setback, which is the crucial factor in this point. So in this context, there is no discernible difference to someone traveling down to the street or someone living in the rear of this property than there would be to a conforming development scenario. So when you have those conditions, there could be no substantial impairment of the zone plan or zoning ordinance, because to the person traveling down the street, this could be a conforming development. There were previous mentions tonight of the master plan and how this project impacts the master plan, and Mr. O'Brien makes a couple of good points in his review letter. The master plan goals and objectives on page 22 indicate that there's a desire to ensure that new residential development is consistent and compatible to the existing neighborhood character. There is no feasible way that anybody can make any argument that a two-family house is not consistent to the neighborhood character when 8 of the 10 neighboring residential dwellings in this stretch of block are two-family dwellings. Additionally, the master plan seeks to preserve single-family neighborhoods from any two-family or multifamily encroachment. North 15th Street between Sheridan and Monroe is not a single-family neighborhood, it's a two-family neighborhood, and the applicant's proposal is certainly in keeping with that development scenario. Additionally, one item that was not in Mr. O'Brien's letter, but I picked up in the master plan, was a desire to maintain and improve Kenilworth's character and identity by promoting pride in the appearance of residential neighborhoods and commercial areas. And the applicant's certainly proposing buildings that will improve the identity and character of this block by the introduction of an impeccably designed two-family house to the area. So in summary, this is certainly an application that, one, relates to a specific piece of property, and in this context, the specifics of this property is that it's not located in a single-family area. The predominant land uses of this block are two-family residential and are municipal in nature. Secondly, it helps advance purposes of zoning A, G, and I, in that it helps provide new housing stock. It's an appropriate location for the proposed two-family dwellings. And then lastly, will be a positive influence to the North 15th streetscape. There's not a substantial impairment of the zone plan or zoning ordinance, in that the applicant is meeting the required lot width and the required backyard depth, and the applicant will comply to all other aspects of the zoning ordinance. So it's certainly a scenario where the applicant can demonstrate the positive and negative criteria with this application.
Mr. Graviano, very quickly, looking at lot 7.02 right across the street, that's a two-family house, isn't it?
That is correct.
What's the width of that lot?
That is less than 50 feet.
And lot 1 is the only lot on this entire street that has a one-family house, is that not correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, a two-family house has been approved for lot 2.01, is that not correct?
That is correct. So when I did my field visit, lot 2.01 was not developed yet, so I did not indicated it in my analysis. If that was included in this scenario, another two-family dwelling would be, and 9 of the 10 surrounding properties would be developed with two-family dwellings.
Mr. Graviano, when was lot 201 approved for a two-family dwelling? Do you know that?
I believe council may have that date.
I believe it's in 2020, Mr. Chairman.
This board?
By this board?
No, it was approved and didn't come up. It was granted the same as the ones all over town.
I'm sorry, if you could just remove that 1 second, I can't hear what you're saying.
I need to check the lot 2.01.
Correct.
Lot 2.01 was submitted for two-family building permits, which were granted by the town.
Just let's not go out of order, please. Mr. Grimaldi, address that, please. You had a question to that?
Okay, I'm just saying that this brings up something I wanted to bring up, but he just brought it up, so I'm going to bring it up. The neighboring property is owned by the same person in front of us, I believe, today, right now.
That's true.
And it was a 150-foot lot, which I was going to bring up something that this board put up for a different project that I believe, and maybe one of our professionals or a lawyer could help us out with it. I believe there's a statute that if you have an undersized lot and you're going to end up in a variance situation, one of the first things you do is see if you can purchase the adjoining property to take yourself out of that situation. But they're all owned by the same person. But how could, without somebody coming to this board, how could a permit be granted to a property that's 50 by 100, unless, the only thing, if they pulled the permit for 100 by 150 lot, which is what it was, and now they are subdividing that lot to now a non-conforming use, so putting the original permit, I don't know the correct legal words, maybe Mr. Regan could say.
So let me just understand something. The way I'm reading this, your Exhibit A, is that Lot 201 is 50 by 100, and Lot 202 is 40 by 100. Am I correct?
No, Lot 2.02 is 100 by 100.
Lot 2.02 is a 100
They're
by...
requesting it be 50.
No. I'm looking, you said to me, you just said, Lot 201 is 50 by 100.
Right, which is
that
white,
correct?
which is white.
That's just below the pink shaded area.
Correct.
Right? You also made a statement that they pulled a building permit to build a two-family house on a 50 by 100 lot. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So how did that happen?
I think that's really a question for the building department. From my perspective, and I was not involved in that, but from my perspective, what happened is everybody understands that in reality...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You asked me, I'm trying to respond to your question.
I'm sorry.
Okay. My answer to that question is, and it's not just this street, and it's not just my client. Routinely, and there are a variety of lots that I can demonstrate throughout the municipality. Permits are granted for two families on 50 by 100. In fact, in one case, on a 45 by 100. That's what's happening out in the real world.
Well, I have to say this, Mr. Fraser. If the building department is granting two-family homes in a 50 by 100 lot, and the planning board doesn't know about it, that's a problem.
I don't disagree with that as a philosophical matter,
Yeah,
but that's not on us.
I didn't say it was, but...
I agree with you.
So what you did was you brought that up as a matter of, as like a point to say, well, we just got a permit to build on lot 201. Why isn't it okay to build on 202?
Actually, I didn't say it nor
You
phrase it
alluded to that.
What I'm saying to you is that it's not just 8 out of 10, it's 9 out of 10, and the only lot on this block that's got a one-family is Lot 1, that's 25 feet in width, and is a 2,500 square foot lot. And I'm suggesting to the board that the board should not and cannot ignore that fact. Because when you go on that street, and I did myself 3 days ago in preparation for this hearing, because I just wanted to, get a visual of what I'm coming here to argue. And I'm looking on this street, I'm like, who would put one families on this street chock full of two families? Now, Mr. Graviano says it in a much more educated, planning way than I do. But I go on that street, and just as a layperson, not a planner, I look at it, and nobody's going to put one families there. It's just not going to really happen. And the only one family that you got on that street is on a 25 by 100 lot. And let's not miss that point. And I'm not going to misrepresent to the board or hide the fact, because I think that would be intellectually dishonest, that yes, on 2.01 even, the borough hands out and charge my client a ton of money for it, building permits. And it's not just my client, and it's not just this street, and I got 3 or 4 or 5 other lots that I'll pull up, including as small as 45 by 100, that the borough approves 2 families on this.
Well, I would like to say this, but I got to interrupt you, because we're here to hear lot 202.
Don't disagree with you.
Not 201. However, you brought up an issue, you made a statement that is an issue at this point. I had no idea that there was a two-family house on that lot?
Approval, not-
Approval on that lot. How old is the house, the single-family house on lot number 1? Is that an old dwelling or is it a new dwelling?
I think it's old. Mr. Grimaldi's nodding his head.
It must have been there how many years, Mr. Grimaldi?
Built in the 30s.
Okay.
I don't know.
So to me, it's out of play. It's even before we knew about what boards were. So basically, everything else on that block is what we're talking about. Because I agree with you. Who's going to put a single-family house on a 25 by 100 lot? So that's out of the question.
Right, but-
We're talking about 202 at this point.
Right, and all I'm saying to you is, on that entire street, the whole block, there is not one single, one-family house, except this pre-1930s house on 25 feet. You got a street that is, but for, the piece we're here for, is a 100% two-family zone. I don't mean when I say zone. That's the reality of what's there. It's 100% two families, and it's 100% less than 7,500 square feet. There's not one single house like that. And I'm suggesting from a legal or from an argument perspective, just as Mr. Graviano suggested from a planning perspective, that that's appropriate and that's what's really out there. And to single out this applicant to say, you're the only guy out there on a street of everybody and their brother has two families, and you have to put one families, that's fundamentally wrong. And the suggestion by Mr. Grimaldi that somehow this was done improperly, respectfully, is offensive, because that's not what happened. There was not, by my client, a prior subdivision of this, to the best of my knowledge, because we would have been here. My understanding is that there were two parcels acquired. There was a pre-existing 50 by 100 parcel that my client acquired and made proper application for and was granted a building permit. And there was a 100 by 100 parcel, and we're here for that this evening, seeking subdivision approval. Subdivision approval that frankly, the subdivision itself we're entitled to as of right. But it would be sophistry to say, well, give us a subdivision so we can come back next month to argue about whether it's two-family or one-family. We all understand that's what the
So,
application
Mr. Fraser, it's also my understanding that if you have a 100 by 100 lot and you're going to subdivide it, it's a minor subdivision, correct?
Yes,
So you're really looking at trying to subdivide this lot, but if you make it 50 by 100, you have 5,000 square feet, it doesn't fit the ordinance, correct?
not if I want two families.
I'm sorry?
Not if I want two families.
Not for two families.
Yes,
So
that's why we're here.
So, yes, but I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but you're saying, why can't my client build on this lot? Well, he can if he wanted to build a two-family house in the center of the lot. So I don't want you to, we're here to hear it, and we're trying to work it through, but don't say he can't, because it does make the board look a little foolish.
No.
He could go the other route, but he's looking to put two families on a 50 by 100.
Yes, that's
Agreed?
the
Okay.
application. I am not saying,
Well,
I am not-
that would be a little bit difficult too. I'm sorry we're having sidebars, but two single families would be non-conforming in a two-family zone, correct?
no, they'd be allowed. That's,
They would be allowed.
please, he could do that, but nobody would.
Right. Mr.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can I make a recommendation? I'm not sure, Mr. Fraser, if you have additional witnesses that you're
Well,
going to
I-
call or not.
I'm
If
happy-
you are, my suggestion would be that we let him complete his full presentation in case before we get into the banner back and forth about, unless there's specific questions, obviously, to the witness.
Well, I think I have to tender Mr. Graviano as a witness, and then I'm certainly happy to withhold my further colloquy with the board until the conclusion of testimony, Mr. Davis.
Again, I'm just making that suggestion to the board. It's up to the board and the chairman to decide if they want to do that. But from my perspective, if Mr. Deck is going to give testimony, I'd like to hear that. If the applicant's going to give testimony, I'd like to hear that, and then we can get into, again, unless the board has specific questions of each of the...
Give me a moment. I am all for what Mr. David said. That's usually the way we conduct this. We hear everything, and then we have a litany of questions, but it just seemed that Mr. Grimaldi needed to make some clarification. So I'd like to reboot this and go the other way, but I would like to hear from Mr. Ray.
Mr. Earliano, looking at A1,
Yes.
on the left side, you have 8 lots in yellow indicated for two-family dwellings. All right, do you know if those two-family dwellings, and you said 201 will be a yellow, which is a mystery right now, but that might be a yellow also, lot 2.01.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know if those 8 lots were there or exist legally? Did they just happen? Were they approved? Were they given appropriate permits, or don't we know?
I do not know the full details of the history of each of those parcels. All of those homes did exhibit signs of some age to them. Some of the development styles, you do, see that they've been there for quite some time. I will note that all 8 of those houses have 2 mailboxes on them. They are functioning as...
If you checked with the assessor, or if you did mailbox, gas meters.
Yeah, I did a combination of walking the street myself, as well as looking at the images on Google Maps when I got back to the office. And I did confirm that each one of those dwellings do have 2 mailboxes on them.
But we don't know if any of those are somewhat of a mystery, such as what we're hearing as with regard to 2.01.
Due to the limited hours of the tax assessor, I was not able to speak to the assessor to verify my findings.
All right, on North 14th Street, lots 1, 2, and 3, what are those? They seem to be part of the neighborhood as well. Do you know what they are?
Well, I certainly do, and as I stated in my earlier testimony, when you look at neighborhoods, you look at the streets that they're on. So in this context, I looked at all of the dwellings that were on North 15th Street between Sheridan and Monroe. However, those 3 parcels on North 14th Street contain a mixture of residential and commercial uses.
All right.
So, this is a neighborhood that I by no means would consider to be a single-family neighborhood, because when you're in the 14th and Monroe area, there's a wide array of land uses, from single-family to two-family to municipal to straight-out commercial to mixed use.
All right.
And the more predominant, strictly single-family and two-family neighborhoods don't occur until you get into the higher number of streets, moving down Monroe and
All
moving
right, let me
down.
ask you about North 16th Street, lots 8 through 14. Most of those look to be similar in size, with a couple of exceptions, similar in size to the majority of the lots on North 15th Street. They look to be 50 by 100. Do we know if they're two-family as well, or single-family?
I did not do the level of analysis on North 16th Street because I was looking at the lots on North 15th Street in this scenario, because that's the true neighborhood of the applicant's parcel.
But they back right up to.
Yes, they do.
All right.
But, when the typical person thinks of a block, it's not the block in a taxation sense. It's the block in the both sides of the street between 2 street contexts. So that's why I focused on the North 15th realm with this analysis.
All right. That's all.
Yes. Can I hear from our planner, please?
If it helps, Mr. Rego, this neighborhood was part of the R3 zone, which was a single and two-family zone between 1995 and 2011. 2015, excuse me.
Okay. So,
Mr. Mazzio?
Yeah, and continuing on Mr. Rego's question on North 16, lots 13 and 8 look like they're, but I can't read what the lot width. 13 looks like it's a 75-foot frontage. I believe they're in the same block, same zone. I don't know if off the top of my head, I don't remember if that's a one-family or two-family, but that's an example of a lot that could be 75 feet wide and meet the criteria for two-family. So
Do we know what's on that lot now?
That is a two-family zone there.
It is a two-family zone, but do we know what's on lot 13?
Give me a minute, I can-
75 feet wide.
I can tell you what was on it in 2015 if you give me a moment.
Quick thing to add, Mr. Matthews. Looking at Google Earth, it looks like there's a couple, two families, in the area from Monroe to the railroad tracks. After that, there's a single after that. But there's also a couple, like the house that's right next to the DPW looks like it's definitely a 75 by 100. And to clarify, this is a two-family residence. This is a two-family neighborhood.
Right.
It's always has been. I'm not arguing that.
I think all these, various elements that everybody's discussing within the context of the neighborhood, they're all valid. I'm not doubting anybody's opinion or input on the matter, but I think when you look at this neighborhood context, what's going on 16th Street is kind of irrelevant to what's going on 15th Street because it's an entirely different neighborhood characteristic. North 16th Street has more single-family houses, is further removed from the hodgepodge mixed-use nature that you have on 14th Street. There are no, commercial establishments on 16th Street, but, they're on that 14th Street side. So as you step away from 14th, each one of these blocks has their own little characteristic. And the characteristic of North 15th Street is that that's a two-family block.
I have an exhibit, this will be A2.
Okay.
Okay. A2 is, I'll ask the witness for purposes of identification. Mr. Graviano, is this a picture of the house that is located on lot 7.02 across the street from the subject property?
Yes.
I only have one of these, but it can certainly be passed around.
That's the 40 by 100, Mr. Fraser?
I believe it's 40 by 100 from what I can read on the map. It's certainly less than 50, and I think it's 40. May I approach?
Sure.
The other reason I'm handing this in is because it is a house of what appears to be somewhat more recent vintage than some of those other houses.
Is that a two-family house?
Yes?
Yeah, there's definitely two mailboxes on it.
Yeah, but is it a two-family house?
Good question.
Look. Smiling.
I'll ask the witness. Is that a two-family house across the street?
Based on my field observation, it certainly appeared to be a two-family dwelling.
Again,
And that's the one that's on what may be a 40 by 100 lot.
It's more than 40, less than 50. I think it's in the 46 to 48 range.
I do not have further questions of this witness, Mr. Chairman, but whatever the...
Down to the board.
Mr. Graviano, do you have anything further to speak about?
No, I think I've covered everything in my testimony.
Okay. So, do you have a question for Mr.
One thing,
Graviano?
because I was just looking at Google Earth, 214. That certainly looks like a single-family house. Again, my contention is that this is a two-family neighborhood, but it does look like a single-family house.
Well, I did notice something in the field analysis that made it appear to be a two for me, so.
Which one is that?
The one right next to Lily Field has a single mailbox, single meter.
So why don't we go back to what Mr. David suggested? Let's see if we could get the rest of your people up here, Mr. Fraser, and see if we could have a little bit more dialogue before we start talking more about this. Who else do you have? Would you like to bring up?
I'm going to call Mr. Paparotto very briefly just to describe what he proposes to describe. Vincent Paparotto, Mr. Chairman.
Would you raise your right hand, please, sir? With regard to this application, do you swear your testimony shall be the truth?
Yes.
State your name and spell your last name, please.
Vincent Papparato, P-A-P-A-R-A-T-T-O.
Thank you.
Mr. Papparato, you are the principal of the applicant FTV Realty, is that correct?
Yes.
And you have to speak up, especially with the
Yes.
All right. And it is your intention, if the board is to act favorably upon your application, that you and your company will be the contractors who are going to propose, who are going to build the houses that you propose, correct?
Correct.
All right, and I'm showing you a document that I just pre-marked as Exhibit A3. Is this the style of what it is you propose to build?
Yes.
Okay, and this would be a two-family, I'm going to get it in, but this would be a two-family structure that I will characterize as being of the side-by-side variety.
Right.
All right. I have one, but it's probably big enough that everybody can see if I may approach, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to kind of hold it up here for everyone to see, and then I can certainly pass it around.
Mr. Is what you're showing us proposed for each lot, or is this?
It's going to be a different elevation.
No, I mean, is this, am I looking at one lot, or will the subdivision line be down the middle?
That's two-family
It's a
house.
single-
It's a two-family house on 150 by 100.
Got it.
So you're going to see two of these side by side.
Well, they won't be identical to comply with any look-alike ordinance or anything like
It was
that.
just to answer his question. You can have one of these and a blue one.
Well, and the front elevation may be a little bit different. The reason I'm putting that exhibit into evidence is to differentiate what Mr. Papparato intends to construct rather than what was depicted on P2. And it also speaks to, and when Mr. O'Brien speaks later, a concern that was referenced back in the master plan testimony in 2015, which Mr. Papparato specifically does want to try to comply with. And Mr. Papparato, that house that is depicted on P, or not say P, I'm thinking plan, but on A3, the house depicted on A3 would still provide and comply with all setbacks and all design standards and requirements of the ordinance, save the 7,500-foot rule, correct?
Correct.
And you will comply with everything, correct?
Correct.
That was all I was calling Mr. Papparato. Oh, and that's actually a house that you built in town, is it not?
It's on 38 North 19th Street.
And when did you build that house?
It was built in 2016,
And what size lots is it?
50 by 100.
I have nothing further from Mr. Papparato.
Then can you please tell me what is the length and width of that house?
Okay, the house is 40 foot wide, and the length is 51.
51, 51?
Yeah.
So when it's 40 foot wide, that allows for a 5-foot setback on either side for 10 feet combined setback.
Correct. Yes.
Any questions for Mr. Papparato?
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to any other board member first, but if not, I'll have a question.
Go right ahead.
What are the applicant's plans for the homes upon, or should say after construction?
Are you going to sell them, or are you going to rent them, what are you going to
Yeah,
do? I
maybe
think that's a-
one will rent and the other two will sell.
The other two, the other one.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand.
The other two.
You're including the one on lot 2.01.
Right.
Where Mr. David's question is, the two houses,
I'm only interested in the properties of
Okay.
question tonight.
We would like to sell it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I shut this.
it's your intention to sell both of the two families that are constructed, correct?
Okay, thank you. That's it. Yep.
Please give me a minute. This is not cooperating.
Now you got me scared.
Can I ask the question? Rich,
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, but I just missed what happened because I was interrupted. So the properties that you're building right now are for rental purposes, not for sale?
No.
Is that what you said?
The opposite. He's going to sell them.
He's going to sell them. You're going to sell these two-family dwellings. Mr. Grimaldi?
So is it more of a duplex or a rental? It's a duplex. Duplex. You're going to,
Anyone else have a question for Mr. Vinnie Paparotti? Okay. Luke, nothing?
I was wondering about 2.01, how that just about.
Well, why don't we stick with this first, and then we're going to have a litany, because this is, I'm sure this is going to go. If no one else has anything for Vinnie, for now, we're going to come back to you, okay, Vin? All right. Mr. Fraser? We want to get...
I have Mr. Deck, if there's an engineering question, just to be out of the abundance of caution, but frankly, I don't see any engineering issues. The applicant will comply with any and all technical and engineering requirements that exist as per ordinance or the reasonable demands of the borough professionals.
Okay, before we go that route, Christian, do you have anything that you think you need to speak to Mr. Deck about?
Unless, if he said he's going to agree to all the comments in my letter.
Yes.
Can we call Mr. Deck up?
Yeah, but that's why I brought him, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, because I don't want to be accused of hiding a witness.
No.
we love Mr.
It'd be easier that way.
All right. I call Edward Deck. Obviously, he's been before this board on many occasions. I don't have questions for him. I tender the witness to the board.
Thank you.
Deck, if you could raise your hand. Thank you. With regard to this application, do you swear that any comments you shall give shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your name and spell your last name.
Edward, middle initial S, last name Deck, D-E-C.
And you qualified before as an engineer. I'm assuming that you're still
Yes, a licensed as professional engineer in land surveying in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to do this again now, basically for the record, rather from the seat. Christian, do you have any questions for Mr. Deck?
Mr. Deck, you reviewed my letter dated September 3rd
Yes.
for the project?
Yes, I did.
You have no issues with any of the comments in my letter?
None at all. As a matter of fact, I would, if the board would like me to enter the Stills report as evidence or just be part of our plot plan application if this project is approved.
I find that acceptable.
You okay with that?
I'm okay.
Kevin? Anything from Mr. Deck?
Chairman, I raised a number of questions on page 2 of my report that have not yet been answered. I just want to point that out to Mr. Fraser to give him an opportunity to bring up whatever witness he needs to answer them at the appropriate time.
Talking about, Mr. O'Brien, section 3 planning comments, page 2.
Correct.
Well, why don't I go through them with Mr. Deck and then if necessary, Mr. Paparazzo. All right, first one, no air conditioning condensers are shown. Do we have any problem in complying with where air conditioning condensers are going to be placed?
No, we do not.
All right. Second one says no street trees are shown. The ordinance calls for one every 30 feet. 3 trees are required. On behalf of the applicant, I stipulate, Mr. Chairman, that we will install the requisite street trees. Third item, no door landings or walkways have been shown on the engineering plan. Mr. Deck, do we have any problem or objection to depicting door landings and walkways on the engineering plan if this were to be approved?
No, I'm familiar with the township's ordinance as far as the distance of sidewalks to the side property lines and also the landing, so we make sure that we meet those requirements.
Just a comment if I'm sorry, Chairman.
Mr. O'Brien, go ahead.
Just a comment on that, and that is that you have very little space on each side because you're maxed out your sideline.
That's correct.
So you're only allowed a couple feet there.
I understand that. We've had that same issue on 61 Locust, and we were able to meet that requirement.
The applicant is not seeking any such relief, just to be clear. With regard to item 4, there is little space available to setback and coverage limitations for typical residential accessory structures such as shed, deck, pool, or patio. That's understood, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And the applicant is not seeking any relief to do that, to put items on it and to improperly invade setback or exceed coverage limitations. Next one, no architectural plans have been submitted. That's true. I got this report a few days ago. We've shown you an elevation of what it is that the applicant proposes. We have no objection as a condition of approval to submitting appropriate architectural, floor plan, and whatever else the borough might require that would comply with that and that would respond to Mr. O'Brien's concern about that. In terms of what the buildings will look like, I think that the picture is worth 1,000 words. And in terms of whether it will fit into the character of the neighborhood, I would respectfully suggest that not only will they fit into the character of the neighborhood, they will enhance and improve in many respects the character of the neighborhood. The next one, the land use.
Hold on, Mr. Fraser.
Fraser, hold on one minute. So we saw A3, which was a photo of a house that I think Mr. Cotterotto had built already.
Right.
Are you saying that the house, if this is approved, the houses that will be constructed on these lots will look substantially like that? Or just to give a more sense of,
Okay.
is it going to be brick, is it going to be stone, is it going to be
Well,
aluminum?
I think that the best answer for that one is looking at A3.
Yes.
One of the two houses is going to look like that. And then the next concern raised in Mr. O'Brien's letter talks about the appearance of individuality of housing units, in other words, a look-alike ordinance.
Right.
The second house is going to be like that, but there will be sufficient architectural details and differentiation so that we don't look like we have two identical houses side by side.
Okay.
That answer your question?
I think I addressed all Mr. O'Brien's points, but
Do you have anything else?
They have been addressed, Chairman. I'll let the board make their own decisions on this.
Mr. Deck, I have a question for you. Where this house is going to be situated on the 50 by 100 lot, Mr. Favarato said it's going to be 40 feet wide by 51 feet long or in depth, right? What is the backyard fence line to the house? I don't have a plan in front of me because
Right, the rear
it
yard-
always comes up wrinkly on the recording.
The rear yard setback, maximum or minimum setback is 20 feet, front yard is 25.
Where is the house going to be placed? That's 20, 25, it doesn't add up to the 100.
Right, we would be
So
placing-
where would that house be set?
Front setback, and then the remainder of excess would be between the rear line and the back of the house.
So the front setback would be 25?
That's correct.
So then you'd have 24 in the back?
That's correct.
Okay. Right? So you got 24, 51, 25.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, Mr. Chairman.
You have 24 in the rear, 51 for the house, 25 in the front. Right? I guess we're on target?
Right, and you're required 20 in the back, and you got 24.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear. Yes, sir.
Sheet 4 on that plat shows the, where the house is. If you wanted further.
Well, I'm sure it's consistent with what they're saying.
No, I know that, I'm just saying.
Thank you, Nick. The thing is, I was listening back to some of these plans, and when I'm shuffling them up here, all you hear is, it's a little difficult. All right, I just wanted to hear it.
So again, Mr. Deck, just to follow up on the chairman's question on that point, not only would all setback and coverage requirements be complied with, but in fact, the rear yard setback would exceed what is required by the zone. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything else from Mr. Deck? Okay. I don't think you have any more witnesses. Thank you, Mr. Deck.
Thank you.
I don't think you have any more witnesses, correct? Okay, so now I think we could have some questions from the board to whomever we'd like to speak to, Mr. David or Mr. Grimaldi. Who would you like to speak to? Mr. Fraser at this point, or our
I'd
professional?
actually like some advice from our professionals.
Okay. Who would you like to speak to?
Because, and I'm not suggesting that what we've done at another job, I know there's no precedent set with anything that we do, but correct me. I think it's normal practice that if somebody comes in front of us and they have a non-conforming lot, one of the first things we ask them, because we've done this before, one of the first things we ask them is, how do you approach the neighbor to buy the property? And I think there's certain language of, without undue hardship, blah, 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 and, you make a reasonable effort. I think there's actually in the planning bylaws, there's, a typical form letter saying, hey, do something like this, make it. So if we have a project in front of us, and the property in front of us is owned by the applicant, and the applicant owns the neighboring property. And if you put those two together, then subdivided them, and they have the ability to meet what we have down in our ordinance, why wouldn't we do that? I asked Mr. O'Brien if I could take a picture of his letter, because I misplaced his. But, we said in there that they have these houses, and look, I don't know how I got misunderstood. This is a two-family neighborhood. It's been a two-family neighborhood since I've been riding my bike through there. It's been a two-family neighborhood. That's not an argument.
I think you've established that.
We've put some information in the ordinance to make it 75 by 100. And again, it was not a typo, it was not a misunderstanding. It was more so, I think the reason that we left the 50 was to appease, and again, this is more of an opinion than a fact, to appease the people saying, well, if you say it has to be 75, you put every two-family house in Kenilworth out of compliance. No, this is going forward. Everything that's there is our housing stock, and it is what it is. Going forward, we try to better it. Same reason why in 1930 that 25-foot house with a single house is fine. Now it's not. We, as a board, have come up with a recommendation of 7,500. Also, that 7,500, I bet you if we had 7,500 by whatever, 7,500 square feet, then the things that Kevin brought up, we could have an area for one person. I love the fact that Mr. Paparon is suggesting that he's going to sell these, because that alleviates a problem I have with these developments of, the owner not being on site. But, we also know we're suburbs, and people like to put up sheds and decks and patios and pools. And if we had 75 by 100, these owners of these new residents, they could put up their shed, patio, and those items on this property. But to my first point, don't we have an obligation to ask this applicant why he didn't sell himself part of this other lot to come up with two conforming lots? And just come up here and say, hey, everything, with no exception, everything is in conformance. I'd like to subdivide my 150-foot property that I own to two 75 by 100 lots and do two fully conforming properties and beautify and do everything else that they just testified to, but meet what we put in as a regulation? Or is it just not, we just, write these improvements? We're sitting down trying to, in a workshop we spoke about, updating the master plan. We're doing this constantly to benefit things. I don't know why we should ignore that now.
I will not ignore that. I think that you make valid points, and I'm going to speak for myself, not for the board here, but as the chair, I'm going to say that lot 201 is not on the table at this point. If you could say hindsight is 20/20, that would have been a great idea. So, now you have two conforming lots. Financially, and we shouldn't be talking about that, but I think the handwriting was on the table, why that wasn't in play. Evidently, he got built.
You said it's not in front of us, 201. But
Yep.
when we ask other people, we ask them about lots that aren't in front of us. We ask them to talk to their neighbors.
No, we're talking about lot 201, which he owns.
I know, but you said it's not in front of us.
It's not in front of us for this application.
I know, but in other properties where the applicant does not own the neighboring properties, it's fair for this board to ask that same question.
I'm not saying that we can't ask the question. What I'm saying is that I don't think this board has the ability to go into the applicant's head to say, why didn't you do it this way?
Well, we have a right
You can make your judgment based on what he should have done, but I don't think we could say that. So when I say that 201 is not in front of us, we could keep that in the back of our mind when you're making your decision on how you are looking at this property and this property only. I can't look at 201 now, because if I do, then that would raise another litany of questions.
But in fairness, Mr. Chairman, the question's been asked, and if it's going to be back in everybody's mind, and it's going to be part of the calculus, then let us answer it. Here's the answer. Lot 2.01 is already an approved building permit that has been issued. It is not available for this application and was not available for this application. And the world of reality here, and what the facts would be, is that when both lots, the 100 by 100 lot and lot 2.01 were acquired, the cost to acquire those lots was so high that there's no possible way that you could do 2 houses on them. It's got to be 3. And that's why lot 2.01 cannot be sold and combined into this. And it is a properly and duly submitted and approved 2-family.
Mr. Frazier, I have to address that then, because you opened that can of worms. If that property was purchased and he or the applicant or whomever went and got a permit to put a 2-family home on there and they got an approval, that's not what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is I can't base a decision on a 100 by 100 lot because a 2-family house went up there without an approval. They
got an approval.
No. They got a building permit. They didn't get an approval. No, it's two different...
It's not a planning board approval, but it's an approval.
But somehow that happened. And I'm not here to question why. It's done. But that doesn't... You're here to try to make us understand that two-family houses can go on a 50 by 100 lot. But to bring in that...
One on each.
One on each. But to bring in that they just got a building permit for lot 201, if I were you, I would have probably kept that quiet.
I thought about it, Mr. Chairman, except that I felt...
With respect.
I felt it would be disingenuous, and I'm here, as I always try to be fully honest and open and transparent about what I'm doing. I have a reputation. I'd like to think it's a good reputation, and I don't like to try to play it fast and loose. And even if I wanted to, I have no doubt that it wouldn't work, because I like to think I'm not an idiot, and somebody would have figured out who owned lot 2.01, and the same question would have been raised. So both as a matter of tactics and as a matter of general integrity and honesty, I'm not going to play that game. The fact of the matter is that 2.01 is consistent with everything in that neighborhood. It's a 2-family. Everything there is a 2-family, with the exception of that 25-foot lot from 1930s in lot 1. It doesn't change the equation, and that land is not available for this. And again, if we look at what's on this street, it's not like lots 6, 5, 4, 3. 2.02 is the one we're in question. 2.01, 7.01, 7.02, or 5. They're not 75-foot wide. They're not 7,500 square foot lots. They're just not.
Mr. Fraser, I think we're going back and forth with this, and I think I'm going to yield to all of this, but I'm going to say one thing before I do. You talked about the financial outlay of these lots, and it wouldn't be financially feasible for the applicant to put 2 houses on there. He can only put 3 houses. That's not a concern to the board. The financial decision to make and purchase properties is that person's decision. We're not here to remedy that.
And that's why I didn't put it in my case in chief, but when asked, I have to answer.
Okay,
That's why.
I don't think we asked you about how much it cost. I don't think we asked that, and I don't think we were saying, man, if you spent $500,000, you better make $700,000. We're saying that whatever happened on 201, I don't care. I'm concerned with 202. Mr. David.
Well, I didn't say.
Through Mr. Fraser, a question of the applicant. So it's been established the applicant owns 201, correct?
That is correct.
What is the applicant's intent for the construction of that two-family home once it is built?
You mean it's that one going to be owned or rented?
Correct.
Let me check.
201?
I think he already stated that he was going to rent it.
He stated he was going to rent it.
Yeah, I'd like to have him come up and say under oath.
That's fine, but I can represent to you that the answer is, his intention is to rent it.
Okay.
You want to hear Mr. Pepperell say that, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that, obviously, it's been clarified, yes. Okay, thank you. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that answers the question, that lot is set aside and nothing can be modified. The applicant owns it, he intends to rent it, so he's going to keep it. So he can do whatever he wants with it, including sell it to himself to make two compliant lots.
Yes, Mr. O'Connor. O'Brien, oh my God.
No idea if this is of interest to the board, but the two lots are currently under the same owner owns both lots.
Right.
Until 2019, a different owner owned both the lots, the same lot.
Okay. Chris, I thought I saw your hand? No?
To his point.
Mr. Grimaldi?
To Mr. O'Brien's point, that owner, I believe, passed away, and the estate sold the property. At that time, anything could have been done to the 150 by 100 lot, number of lots. But it was a 150 by 100 property that was purchased. I don't care what the breakup is. You could have chosen to do whatever. And I would suggest, since we're talking semantics and economics, right now, from what is going on in the real estate world, although it's definitely a two-family neighborhood, you could put single-family homes on right now, and it would sell right now, because anything with doors and four walls seems to sell, and it's selling like crazy. So it would sell.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have to take exception to one statement Mr. Grimaldi just made. In fact, as Mr. O'Brien just pointed out, his lots were under separate ownership. I kind of bought these lots from two different people. No? No? That's what you just said. Okay. They were under separate ownership. I stand corrected.
They were the same ownership, Mr. Fraser.
Oh, then I misunderstood what you just said, Mr. O'Brien. I apologize.
No problem.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Mr. Fraser? Mr. Pantina, I'm sorry.
I don't want to talk to Mr. Fraser, not that I don't like you, but I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Mr. O'Brien. Okay, so I agree with what Mr. Grimaldi's been talking about, and there's a two-family neighborhood, I get it. And at some point in life, I might have been on the board, I don't know. We might have been on the board, but at some point in life, we did decide as a board to state the fact that if two families / duplexes were going in, we wanted 7,500 square feet. I agree with that. Whether it's 75 foot wide, 50 feet wide, whatever, it's 7,500 square feet. That was the fact. And whereas it's been said that on this block, there are a bunch of two families on less than 50 foot lots, I've been on this board long enough that while that ordinance was in play, we have heard cases, and if it wasn't 7,500 square feet, then we get the variance. Some got variance, but some, a lot of them didn't. That being said, when did the 7,500 square feet go into effect? Mr. O'Brien?
Mr. Pantina, the 7,500 square foot recommendation was made in the 2011 master plan. It was adopted in the zoning ordinance, which was adopted in early 2015.
Okay. And
Can I elaborate on that?
no, just,
Wait.
I listened to a bunch of things. I kind of like know the answers, but I want to hear it.
Okay, because there is a little bit more to that.
No, I'm okay with that. I'm just, so the other 8 houses that are yellowed out, I mean, there's other houses on here that aren't yellowed out, but the other 8 houses that are yellowed out on the street, would you say that they were built possibly before 2011?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm relatively sure that all of them were built prior to 2011.
Right, so the fact that they're on under 50-foot lots, or 50-foot lots, or under 7,500 square feet lots, is because they were grandfathered, and they were there beforehand.
That's correct.
Right, and as a board, we decided in good faith, and consistent with the master plan, that duplexes for 2 families, side-by-side 2 families, we're going to need more width, and that's could be one of the reasons why we came up with the 7,500 square feet.
Can we hear from Mr. David? Because
I was just going to say, just for Mr. Pantine's edification, as somebody who's lived in town for 61 years, the majority of those homes were built pre-1975.
I got it. I'm just, the reason why I'm bringing this up, and you know, you guys are the natives here, I've only been here for 20 years, so I don't disagree with that, but the way Mr. Frazier and witnesses were kind of specifying or indicating is that, well, look, what's the difference if we do this on a 50-foot lot? Because all the other houses are like that anyway. Well, all the other houses have been here for 50 years. And just because we have some empty lots, and we want to make things better, and we want to improve the integrity of the neighborhood, and improve on the master plan, and improve on the ordinances, just because it was, doesn't mean it has to go forward with that. That's it.
Well, I want to elaborate, because there's some key components that were, not that we're missing, but maybe we're not privy to because of who was on the board at that time, who was part of the master plan at that time. But the 75 by 100 lots for a 2-family house.
Well, not necessarily 7,500 square feet. I'm not arguing.
I'm going to throw up a technical. So the 7,500 square feet lots came by way back in a different 4 other administrations while I was still on the board, and we were together. And that was primarily based around the Girl Scout property.
Right.
And because there was so much property back there, they said, from here on in, all of that empty land, because it goes back to Mr. Fraser's question, well, show me the 75 by 100s that you could, or 7,500 square feet, where you could put 2 families, right? I was on that board, I was on that committee, and I was part of the master plan back then, with Kevin and everybody else, and a lot of other people. And I said, the 75 by 100 or 7,500 square feet in that area made sense. It was empty land. It was a community within a community, like it's a community held by itself. But I also raised the question that if a 2-family house burnt down on whatever street in a single-family zone, would they be allowed to build the 2-family house? And the answer was no, it wouldn't conform. That would be, to me, that would be detriment to that person who owned a 2-family house. The mother lives downstairs, the uncle lives upstairs, and I had a hard time with it back then, and I have a hard time with it now, quite honestly. However, even in a situation where you have all of these 50 by 100 2-family lots, does this 7,500 square feet apply to them in the middle of the house? The scenario is, let's say lot number 5, something happened, the earthquake hit and it fell down. He can't put a 2-family house back up there? I mean, I think that's going the opposite direction. Now, I know what other ordinances...
There is relief, though.
I'm sorry?
There is relief, though.
There is, but I'm saying, you come to the board, but here we are. You come to the board, what do you do in a case like that? I think I'm looking at a case like this, in some respects. I can't look at his lot 201, Nick.
Listen, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. You, everybody else here, and I get that. But we came up with these ordinances for a reason, okay? I'm just saying, and we all have our opinion, and you guys can vote however you want to vote.
Yeah.
But we came up with these ordinances for a reason, we came up with these standards for a reason, and, yeah, that's why they come for variance, relief.
All right, I want to go around the horn. I want to go to Mr. Ladati real quick.
Just, Mr. Chairman, in your scenario with the earthquake or the fire, I think people will come up here and understand the hardship, right?
We would hope so.
I would hope so. With builder, we've had construction people come up here, either single guy doing construction, that we said, you should know better, right? Before you close that garage, it was one example of it. I think there's a big difference between a builder in someone's house that burns down or gets done in an earthquake. I think there's a hardship there.
Okay.
That's my thought.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going in a different direction now, because I feel like the hearing is off track. So we're kind of debating the merits of the case, and we still haven't even opened it to the public.
You are so correct. You're so
We need to get
correct.
back on track.
You're so correct. And I applaud Mr. David again for always keeping me in tow. So, does anybody else have any questions right now? If not, no more questions for Mr. Fraser, no more questions for
I'm going to
Mr.
have one or two for Mr. O'Brien, but I'm perfectly happy to wait for the public if that's,
Well, we don't really, if that's what you'd like to do, that's fine.
just one or two very, very brief. Because I heard a comment earlier that said, well, the reason we did this way, and we left the 50 in play, was because there was a cohort of property owners who then all their properties would be thrown into non-compliance, if I heard that correctly. Did I hear that correctly, Mr. O'Brien?
I'm sorry.
Well, let me try a different way. Why was the 50 width requirement left in place when the 7,500 bulk requirement was put in place?
There was, to my recollection, and this was a few years ago, so board members can correct me. My recollection was that the existing two-family, that no one wanted to penalize the existing two families, but that future two families would need additional room, so that, let's just say in the case of the two adjacent Alvarado properties, the thought would be they would make two families rather than three two-families.
Okay,
They would have that.
I understand the emotion that underlines that, but here's my question. You're saying, okay, you don't want to penalize the existing property owners, correct? Because you'd be making their properties non-conforming, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you had changed it for, from 50 to 75, you made all those people non-compliant, right?
Following.
Didn't you equally do the exact same thing, make them all non-compliant if they have 5,000 by making the new zone 7,500?
No, because the ordinance specifically applied only to new two-family buildings.
All right. Now, at the May 19, 2015 special hearing on the master plan, you said the following: a wider lot encourages a duplex which looks more like a single-family dwelling and fits in better in residential neighborhoods. Isn't that exactly what's being shown here on A3?
I accept your statement.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Fraser? Mr. Ladati?
I mean, the applicant's a builder, all the experts have testified here before. How come we don't have like the elevations or anything to vote on? I mean, to me, elevations where the air conditioning units go, where the paths are, I'd like to see that before I'd like to make, that's got to be part of my decision.
What the proposed homes would look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's just, to me, that's just not exactly what's going to go in there.
I see a hand, but I can't see your face. Oh, I'm sorry.
There was one in the room here, so that was going to be one of my questions. Is this a normal ask of a board to approve a change like this without seeing the elevations, without seeing what they're proposing? And I would agree, I think it would be good to know what they're proposing, not just a picture of it.
So, I mean, to answer your question, when you get to this level, there's nothing really normal. They come in sometimes with a piece of paper, and sometimes they inundate you with volumes. And what we like to say most of the times is that the more you present us, as Mr. Ladati is asking for, the better off you would be as an applicant, so we don't have to ask those questions. It almost leaves us on a blind side. So your question is spot on. The more you give us, the more we have to work with. But you never know what's going to come up.
But in response to that, and I certainly appreciate that comment, I would just say this, that the problem here with these lots, if there be a problem, is that they're 100 feet deep rather than 150. And there's nothing that you're going to see in any elevation that changes that fact. In a perfect world, ideally, I hear you, and would it be, in some respects, better if I had an elevation rather than a picture? Maybe, except this is a house that was just built in town by this applicant, and it's the same thing. But your comment is
But I
fair.
think, here's my issue. I think the applicant was up here maybe a year ago or so for another, and the same thing happened where we didn't have the elevations. Now, I think I'm correct with that statement. And the same issue I had with it. So, that's what process.
So I could just say, no,
Okay,
no.
okay.
Okay. One more question? Go ahead.
A statement, Mr. Chairman, and that is because this is a minor subdivision and a bulk variance. Elevations are not required by the checklist. So to the applicants,
I fully understand that.
You're right.
I just, I'm just saying to help a decision-making process.
Yep.
You would think you'd have that, that's all.
Okay. Anyone else? Greg?
Okay, I make a motion that we open the meeting to the public.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. David, second by Mr. Grimaldi. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak about this case, in this case only, please step up to the microphone, state your name, address clearly, and you will be heard.
Hisham Kamura. I live in 374 Boulevard. I own the property at 203 North 14th Street. I'm a professional civil engineer. I am a senior associate at Mazer Consulting.
Where's your property, sir?
203 North 14th Street, sir.
203 North 14th.
Lot number 3? Lot number 1. Lot number 1.
Oh, you're the corner lot.
Corner lot, yes.
Okay. Could I please ask you to, maybe if you could just pull your mask down a little so I can hear you a little bit more clearly? Okay, thank you. And could you spell your name for the record?
Hesham, and my last name is Kamura, Kammoura.
Thank you, Mr. Kamwar.
Will you be giving comments or just questions?
I have questions and comments.
All right, could I ask you to be sworn in, please, if you're going to give testimony of sorts? With regard to this matter, do you swear that the comments and testimony you're about to make shall be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, the board members. I really appreciate to give me the opportunity to speak up on behalf of this application. I have a question for the applicant first. He just stated that the house that he built in, I believe in 16th Street, the one, the exit, 19th. No, it was built back in 2011, right?
Mr. Kamir, you need to speak into the microphone. I'm sorry.
Why doesn't the applicant come up so?
Yeah, why don't you come on up, then stand about 6 feet away, and maybe we could have a little bit of, and then we could work this out.
So the picture that you show us, that's for a house that you built back in 2011, is that correct?
2011, I'm not sure.
All right, around that time. And it was built on a 50 by 100 lot?
Yeah,
Okay, did you need to go in front of the planning board for this?
no.
No, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paparotto.
No problem. Also, as I hear from the board members, I know that as a fact that the lot 01 I'd get a building permit, and it's also a 50 by 100. That's correct?
That's what we heard tonight as well.
All right, I know that for a fact because I live in the area. Also, I have noticed that two other properties in 11th Street and 12th Street, they get building permit and get built it already, and it's 50 by 100.
Two families?
Yes. Okay, my question here, number one, I have a very bad experience with the ordinance. The Borough ordinance is not really clear in some cases. One of those cases is exactly that 7,500 square feet. Nobody knows if it should be a 50 by 100 or 75 by 100. I'm telling you, I've been living in this town for 25 years, and I hear everybody is a developer or just regular, people like me. Anyway, back in 2014, I have one of my friends, Mr. Ghazi, who sits back there. It happened to have a house in the front of this property, exactly in the front of this property.
Which property in question?
The property in question today.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Ghazi owned lot number 5 in block 32.
Okay.
Back in 2014, I personally submitted an application to the zoning officer, the former zoning officer, which happened to be here by accident. I never planned this.
In case you don't know.
Okay.
Control yourself, Robert.
And the answer was no. You don't have a 75 by 100 lot, so you will not be able to do this unless you be in the front of the planning board. My applicant, as you see, he's an old guy, he has 3 girls, 2 of them already married. His hope was to get it to 2-family house so he can get his daughter in the same house. But because he had a very limited budget, he couldn't really come in the front of the board and spend all this money, and it's not granted at the end of the day that he's gonna pay me and he's gonna pay all the process. So he decided to just sit tight. So his 2 daughters moved from the town. They still come every day, but they move out. So that's one case. And as an engineer, I'm just looking at this. And I'm very glad that you're being very honest and tell everybody why that 7,500 was done back then. Because I have the same bad experience since 2002. In 2002, my house is a corner lot in the Borough and the 14. That's where I live. Some developer, I don't know the name, decided to buy a piece of property, 100 by 100, and he subdivided. Tried to subdivide it to make 2-family house. For some reason, they changed the entire ordinance for this area to make the lot 100 by 75. So of course now my house, which I have a lot of 50 by 100, is not conforming anymore. I was in the same exact room here, and I was assured that if I came back anytime to do an addition or do something, I will be granted. That never happened. I submitted an application to my former zoning officer here, and I cannot do whatever I want as I was conforming before. So I'm not sure why we are going this route. Why, for a special case, you have to change the entire ordinance for everybody else. I own another house in 8th Street. I bought it before 2011. It's a 2-family house. It's a 50 by 100. I pay all my money. All my money in this house. Now, after you guys change the ordinance, it becomes non-conforming. As you said, if you burn out, guess what? I lost my money. I think that's unfair to residents. I think you guys have to think about this one more time, please.
Hold on, let
Can
me
I ask you, could I mention one thing? We don't have, this board does not have the power to change ordinance.
Okay.
And we can grant relief, but we don't change the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, the other point is that the purpose of the public comment is to make comments specific to the application, not to...
This is still specific to the application, because the minute...
If I can respectfully disagree, you're bringing up mishaps that have happened during a period of time throughout, different areas of the community.
Okay,
We're focused on this case tonight.
That is, I'm sorry. But again, the applicant have granted a building permit in lot 01, while my client was declined the same application, an existing house to be a two-family house.
When was that?
That was back in 2014. So I think it's time to start to think about this. You're hurting everybody else. Thank you.
Mr. Kabor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, I have no questions of Mr. Kamara.
Okay. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Herbert, the former zoning officer. Come on up.
Am I allowed to?
You're a resident of the town?
Thank you.
And you just got referenced.
I like to clarify, because I know,
I think you're still a resident.
I know in the past I'm not allowed to.
Mr. Chairman, right, unless this is, his comment is specific to this case, I don't think we should be hearing.
Okay.
I guess he can say whatever he wants, but
Well, let's keep it in.
I agree with you, Mr. David. At the end of this session, you open it up to the
exactly,
public.
that's my
if
point,
you have
Mr.
anything to
Herbert.
say.
Right. If there's general comments from the public, which happens later, this particular point in time is specific to the case.
In this case,
Testifying, Mr. Herbert? I mean, you're going to be stating.
well, I'm not testifying, I'm asking questions and making a statement.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, I just didn't know if I wanted to swear you in now.
I'm only following the rules that you made.
Okay.
Okay, proceed, Mr. Herbert.
Okay, thank
For the record, this is Robert Herbert. State your name for the record, Robert.
you. Robert Herbert, 14 North 12th Street. I have some questions in some of the comments made by the board members pertaining to this case, Mr. David, talking about an existing two-family that if it burnt down, they have to come in front of the board. That's not true. If they put back exactly what was there and not change the facade under case law, which I believe the board attorney, Mr. Rigo, can clarify that. But I just want to clarify that. And then with this case, Mr. Rigo, I would like to ask you a question as a professional attorney, land use attorney. If someone's going for a subdivision and it doesn't conform with the requirements, is the applicant obligated to acquire additional land to make it conforming? But on this particular applicant's case, I want to switch that a little bit. I could see his argument clearly, because if you look on our tax map, probably 98% of the town is 50 by 100. They're 200-foot plots from block to block. It's always been that way. So there's no possible way for this applicant to meet the 7,500 square feet, because the lots are only 100 foot unless he buys the property on the next block. Then he deals with 2 front yards. So it's kind of like a catch-22 here that we have here. But again, if you go for a subdivision, you have to prove your hardship, your positives, and your negatives. And, the board has to take that in consideration. And my last and final thing, I heard testimony that...
But didn't you ask a question?
Did you?
I did ask the question.
There are municipalities who, if an applicant comes in front of a board, either board, and they have dimensional issues, that the board even gives them a form letter, very short. They mail it to the neighbors and say, can you sell me X square feet? Do you want to buy X square feet for me to try to mitigate the deficiency? 99% of the time, those letters are thrown in the basket by the neighbor. But towns want you to give it a shot. Other towns, if an applicant comes in and says, I tried labor to my right, labor to my left, nothing, that's okay. Here, I don't see it being viable. I mean, he owns one lot and the other lot seems to be, you don't want to make lot 3 any smaller. So in this case, I don't know if it would fly. But there are towns who do like you to go through the format.
There's no case law about that?
If an objector comes in, let's say you own lot 2, and I know, hopefully we're not getting too far here. Let's say you own 2.01, and you came in and objected and said, I will sell my guy the property. I have offered him a piece of my property to make his lot, so he'll have 2 conforming lots. That would be very relevant to the board. And that might, and if he says, I don't want to buy it from Mr. Herbert, that can certainly be considered in his claim that there's a hardship, because you're coming in now wanting to alleviate the hardship. Unless you said, I want $1 million, then that'd be a joke. So there are situations where boards can consider that, but we don't have that here. So why don't you make your last point? The case law basically says try to mitigate, try to get more land, yes, but it doesn't happen a whole lot.
I understand. And my last question, I have to leave that to after this testimony is done, and you say, when you open it up to the floor, to the public, for the good. I'll leave that last question for a later time.
Thank you, Rep.
All right. But the last thing I'd like to say is, all our lots are 50 by 100 in town. There's 2 families. And Mr. Chairman, if one kid burns down, as long as they do it as the same footprint and the same facade, don't make any change, they don't have to come back in front of the board.
There are towns, Mr. Herbert, if it's a totally conforming house and it burns down, you're right. You can go to the building department, and I'm going to do the same thing and this and that. If it's a house that's there by variance, or if it's a non-conforming use, you have to go back to the board. As Donnie said, there are equity issues to be raised. If my house burns down, and if it was there by a previous variance, if I have deficiencies, and I want to rebuild it the same way and come into the board, I think the board will understand. I didn't cause the fire, it burned down. It's a hardship, and most boards I know will say do it. But you really have to come back to the board on that. It's only when the house is there, no variances, no nothing, it's permitted, you submit new building plans, then it's a go. But other than that, you really have to give the board a heads up on what you want to do. Okay. If you lose a non-conforming lot or non-conforming uses, you got to start from scratch pretty much.
So you're telling me a pre-existing non-conforming property, which on 15th Street, at one time, all those houses were conforming. Okay? At one time. On North 15th Street, it was a 2-family house on 50 by 100 lots.
Right.
And they were approved back in the day because it was conforming.
Right.
But now there are no
Non-conforming?
No, they were conforming.
But now
Today they're non-conforming because our master plan requires 7,500. So the township, the borough, let me finish. The borough made everybody's 2-family house on North 15th Street that sits on a 50 by 100 non-conforming.
I got to interrupt you. We're going off again.
A little bit. I understand.
Come back to it. That's important because I'd like to hear more about it.
I know we have some newer members and they need to get educated.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir. Please come on up, state your name and address, and please spell your last name for the record. And if you have something pertaining to this case, if you can, and then we could open it up to the public again later.
Just a quick comment.
Okay.
Scott Pence, 186 Boulevard.
How you doing, Scott?
Good, sir. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Lady, how are you? Ladies and gentlemen, real quick, just sitting here listening to this. Master plan was done for a reason. A lot of towns have master plans. Your 75 by 100 is spot on. And to Mr. Herbert, this is only for new construction. This is a no-brainer for the planning board. Has to be 75 by 100, that is it for a two-family house. The ordinance is there. If he does it, then he might want to do it, she might want to do it, he might want to do it. You're gonna have a whole bunch of two families with a 50 by 100 lot. You're putting a strain on the town, the water system, flooding, everything comes together. Vehicle parking on that street, it's a dead end, correct?
Yes.
North 15 is a dead end. Now you have a parking issue. You also have a school issue. What's the average amount of kids for a family? It sounds stupid, but it's 2.5 kids. Times 4, that's 10 kids. You're putting a strain on the school. Harding School's already got an issue. With not overcrowding, but it's getting there. You start building all these two families all over the place. Does Kenilworth have the ability to float a bond to either add to Harding School or build somewhere else? I'm just saying this is a no-brainer for the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pence. Good to see
I
you.
have a couple of questions for that witness, Mr. Chairman.
Come on up.
He's not a witness.
He's just,
He's a public comment.
Actually, he made factual statements, or statements that I consider to be non-factual before the board. They were in the nature of testimony that is respectfully subject to cross-examination, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pence, do you mind answering a couple questions from Mr.
Mr. Frazier, can you come on up? Mr. Pence, can you please, just a little distancing, but let's.
Mr. Pence, you stated that the borough ordinance says 75 by 100 feet. It doesn't say that, does it?
7,500 square feet.
Excuse me, you said it says 75 by 100. It doesn't say that, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Thank you. You said 2.5 kids per building unit. What standard or text are you using to make that statement?
That's just a generalized
Are you a
statement.
demographer?
Sir, I've been in the government for 32 years.
My question was, are you a demographer?
No, sir.
Are you an expert in reproductive race?
No, sir.
Do you have any citation to support that statement for 2.5, or is that something that you just pulled out of thin air?
Well, next planning board meeting, I'll bring it back. I'll bring your old.
My question was, do you have a citation, or did you pull it out of thin air?
I've seen the facts.
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Pence, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none?
Motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
Second.
Made by Mr. David, second by Mr. Grimaldi. All in favor?
Aye.
Wow. Okay. Some discussion here.
Do I sum up before or after?
I'm sorry, Mr. Fraser.
You should sum up.
Sum up,
Then the board
and then we'll,
You're going to like
because we also, I'm sorry?
You're going to like this. I've said what I had to say. I think the application is clear. There simply is no 75-foot requirement. And if the board wanted there to be a 75-foot requirement, they would have done that, and the town would have done that, and the town didn't do that. So what the town did, when they put in 50 wide and they put in 7,500, they were contemplating 50 by 150 lots that simply don't exist. The the ordinance does not exactly as written make a lot of sense. Whether it's a typographical error or a conceptual error fundamentally doesn't matter. At the end of the day, in accordance with the planner's testimony, positive and negative criteria of the municipal land use law as applied to this property and this neighborhood, the requirements for the grant of a variance are met, and we respectfully request that the board grant the relief sought. I said I'd be brief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate the attention and care that the board has given to this matter, even where the commentary was spirited and I didn't agree with all of it. I appreciate the fact that people care enough and the time that is donated on a volunteer basis to the citizenry, and I think that that's not always appreciated enough, and it is understood and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fraser. I'd like to hear from the board at this point, some of your comments of what you heard tonight. I know we're all eager to speak about what we heard from the professionals as well as the public, because the public, I believe, has brought up some very interesting points. So I'd like to start somewhere. Mr. David, can you either, not sum up, but give me some of your thought process, or give the board some of your thought process?
I'm sure you want to go to me first, David.
Well, I go to the voice of wisdom all the time. How was that?
All right.
Yeah, you did a great job.
So a couple of comments. First off, the argument about creating non-conforming lots, for me, is a non-starter. I mean, the whole purpose of reviewing your master plan and modifying and updating it on an ongoing basis over time is because the times change and things need to change with the times. So there will always be a scenario where a zone is changed, the code is changed or whatever, and homes that were previously conforming are no longer. And there's relief for when that happens. I personally own an existing non-conforming use, and that's something that I live with. You know? So I'm not being sold on that issue about the fact that all the other ones are 50 feet on 50-foot by 100-foot lots. Again, those homes were built in different times, under different zones, under different codes. And then the other issue I have is that the applicant has stated that he owns an existing piece of property, which did become part of the hearing this evening, that has not been built on yet, and he intends to build a home on it, a two-family home, and he intends to rent it. Well, if he decides not to do that, and this property, he can then combine that with the existing property to go back to a 150 by 100-foot lot that then can be subdivided into two 75 by 100-foot lots, and he can build his two-family homes that are 100% compliant with the existing code, and most specifically, the one that requires 7,500 square feet. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't think that this is an applicant who knows the community extremely well. So he knew what he was doing when he bought the properties, and I don't feel that someone should be rewarded for a possible mistake made by our building department, because, again, the requirement is 7,500 square foot building lot, and if he got a building permit on an undersized lot, I don't know how that happened. I think it's something that obviously should be looked into, but again, I don't feel someone should be rewarded for the fact that the borough made a mistake. There's a way to remedy this. He has that ability to remedy it, and I kind of feel that's the way I would go for this particular case.
Mr. Grimaldi.
I would just like to thank Mr. David for saying it much better than I would have. Wisdom, even though I have whiter hair, there's more wisdom maybe. But again, it needs to be a two-family. I don't know where that argument came from, but it's a two-family area. I still think a single-family home would sell there, because everything right now is selling. But Mr. O'Brien, we paid him money. He wrote a letter. It says with the setup that is presented to this board right now, you couldn't have what every family is going to want to have. A shed to throw the bikes in, a patio, a this, that. It can't be done with this. We increased it for those reasons. We need to go back and look at that, because we also need to reset, along with that, we need to reset our setbacks and our coverage and everything else to mold that 7,500 better. In the comments after this, I'll make a comment about something that the planning board was talking about in reference to these type of homes too, but that's not for now. So again, between what Mr. David said, comments, what Nick had brought up before, and I will say, I'd ask Mr. Rego, the comment that you had with the ex-zoning officer, I think that statement still in play, and I'm saying this because I brought the statement up too, because I know I asked that question to the gentleman that came in front of us at 8th Street. That he had the ability to buy the property. You know, we complain that, oh, look at what happened in Cranford, they got this nice development. Our property owners need to talk to each other to get better pieces of property. But I made sure I asked that question then, because that question's been used against me while presenting in other towns. So I know of it very well. And again, economics shouldn't come into this, that you and the chairman both said are beyond our statement. But as Mr. David said, this owner knows town well, knows what he was buying, and he had the opportunity to come in here and make his life easy and get these two developments up and ready. He's already demoed the property. He can be building already. So I would agree with Mr. David.
Thank you, Mr. Grimaldi. Mr. Pantina?
I want to applaud Mr. David and Mr. Grimaldi on their comments, and the entire time we were listening to this case, I was thinking about 8th Street and on our decision on that. And I know it's a different case, but again, one compliant lot, exceeds 7,500 square feet, and that's what it stated at. And if we're not happy with our ordinances, then we should change them. But that's all I have to say.
Mr. Ladati?
No, I'm good, thank you.
You good? Anyone else? No one else here. How about you, Chris? You have anything to add to this?
No.
Good.
I wasn't sure if I was blocking on it, that's why I was like, please.
No, I was aiming for it. Mr. David? I do applaud everything that you just said, and I'm going to echo most of your words, but there are some things that I'm going to share with you as well, as your chairman, because I also heard from the public, and I really do, it goes back to the public, and I do feel for the public what they go through every time there's either administration change, zoning change. Everybody says, okay, I can't do it today, but I could do it tomorrow. Should I wait to go before the planning board, where maybe next season it's going to be a little bit better? With respect to Mr. Penn saying that how it impacts the schools and things like that, I look at single-family homes and I look at two-family homes a little bit differently. If you have a two-family home on a 75 by 100, well, you've got 4,000 square feet plus, right? And if you have a single-family home, you got 2,000 square feet. So the impact is relatively the same. So I can't listen to it that way. I got to look at it from another perspective, because they already made a statement that they're 40 by 51, you're just above 2,000. But if you're going to build a huge single-family house, you're going to probably have more than that on a 50 by 100 lot, as I see it, as I've built many a home. I'm going to make this statement because way back when all this was coming about, I was for the 75 by 100 / 7,500 square feet new two families on empty lots in an open area. But I was not for what is going on in a street like 14th Street, 15th Street, and other communities that have two-family homes already there. It's almost like a catch-22, because in this particular instance, yes, the applicant can say, I'm not going to pull the permit on that other house, and I can put two 75 by 100 conforming lots. But let's just say he didn't have that. He didn't have it, and he got two 50 by 100s. I understand that this board is going to say, well, we have to stand by the ordinance, and that's what the ordinance is. is the ordinance reading the right way? That's all I'm going to ask this board to take a look at as well. I do agree with the 75 by 100 in open space. But in pre-existing conditions, where we have a situation like this, I think this board and the board after us and others should really take a look at it, because it really affects a lot of people who own two-family houses in a two-family zone who want to make it look exactly the same. I, for one, think that maybe this might be out of touch, putting a two-family house in a 75 by 100. I think it kind of throws it out of kilter. That's just my statement, but I'm the board chairman, and I stand by the ordinance. I can't look at it any other way in this particular case, but I will promise the public this. I'm going to talk to this board, and I think we need to have more discussion on how this has to work in certain different areas. I'm having a hard time with it. I guess I need to put it to you that way. I do agree with my board members that the ordinance is in place. So, with that being said, anyone else have anything to say? Seeing none.
I'd like to make a motion based upon what Mr. David said to deny this application. Second.
Who seconded it? Okay. Motion is made by Mr. Grimaldi, seconded by Mr. Cantina.
Yes, it's to deny.
To deny this application. Roll call, please.
Mr. Paserno?
Yes.
Mr. David?
Yes.
Mr. Grimaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Cantina?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzio?
Yes.
Mr. Ladowdy?
Yes.
Mr. Colella?
Yes.
Mr. Scudery?
Yes.
Mr. Mahone?
Thank you very much. Sorry the way this turned out, but hopefully we can have further conversations and see where this goes.
Very well, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Fraser. Thank you, everyone that was here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we go into the comments for the good of the board.
Yes. I will make a motion to open the meeting to the public for general comment.
Made by Mr. David.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Grimaldi. I guess I only have two people here. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Anyone from the audience wishing to speak on anything you want to speak about? Oh, Mr. Herbert.
I'm sorry for being late. I was stuck in traffic.
Yeah? Go ahead, Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
On a positive note, I would like to just bring to this board's attention something that happened at last night's town meeting. I brought up our Kenilworth Fire Department, and it's 31 years I've been in town. They always provided a wonderful, wonderful service, always been there for the public here, and they work endless hours having their carnival every year to raise money so they didn't have to burden the taxpayers, to run their volunteer department. So that was one of the main reasons. It was a fundraiser for them at their carnival. Of course, this year with the pandemic, they couldn't have it. But once again, Mr. Chairman, 31 years that I've been here, and I'm sure it's been longer than that, and I'm sure Mr. David could testify that, our men and women on the fire department, rescue squad, they sacrifice a lot, and they put themselves in danger every time they get that call. And with 9/11 tomorrow around the corner and the craziness that's going on in this country right now, one thing I know, Kenilworth pulls together when the chips are down, okay? And we put our differences aside. And I just want to bring to you guys' attention, I suggested to the mayor and council to put the thermometers back outside, and we all contribute a little bit to give back to our fire department. Because if they did have their carnival, we would be spending money there to help them. So they need our help right now. They lost their funding that runs their department by not having the carnival. And the mayor and council seem very perceptive to it. It's at the first step, and I believe you're going to see those thermometers go up. So I ask all your members, please spread the word to your friends and family and any local business owners. Once we see them, just reach into your pocket and let's help out our volunteer fire department. Very well deserved. So if you could pass that on through your connections, I would really appreciate it.
Will do.
Okay?
Thank you, Robert.
Now, my other question I have, I heard in testimony that just was denied, and I'm looking for clarification, or if you can't give it to me tonight, if you can look into it, and at the next meeting, let me know what the answer is. If we need a 7,500 square foot lot to build a two-family house, how did this applicant that owns a separate lot, 50 by 100, get approval and get building permits?
Well, that's what we're going to find out, right? I mean...
Well, I don't know, I'm asking.
Well, we don't know. We got to find out. And I heard 3 cases in 10 minutes here that is very surprising to all of us up here. So
Right.
that came from downstairs or across the hall. That didn't come from us.
No, I understand that, but I'm asking you as the board members, you should look into that, because the ordinance that you guys enforced are not being enforced.
Well, Mr. David clearly said that that's something that we should look into. And Bob, we're going to look into it, because that goes against everything that we stand for here. If that's happening at a different level, we might as well just go and have a cocktail right now.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
You gotta order dinner with
Kind of like, for so many seats in a restaurant, you need a parking space, but we're not going to apply by it. Who cares? That's another topic, you know? But honestly, I would like to know what the answer is, why that was approved, and the ordinance is in effect.
All right, Ms. Lodati, you have a
There's
question?
no other thing, I mean, again, it's a business, the person's in a business, the applicant's in a business, they knew what the ordinance was, right? So why would, I know you gotta get a denial or whatever, why would you just say that's okay when you know it's wrong? Right?
Who, the applicant?
The applicant, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the
I'm
applicant...
talking about any business person, right? Any business person should know what the law, every builder here in town knows what the ordinances are. So why would you just try to circumvent the process? That's my opinion.
No, I don't know.
But
We'll look into it.
He did, and he got away with it. Right, that's what I didn't want to say that, but that's...
Well, and if I can just
Put it on record.
make a comment to Mr. Herbert, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So, Mr. Herbert, I mean, obviously, you can make whatever comment you want here tonight, and we appreciate that, but I would also suggest that you go to the next council meeting. The board doesn't control the building department. All we do is, hear cases and then, give decisions accordingly. In terms of if the building department is not following our code, our master plan, or whatever, that's really an issue for the mayor and council to address. Don't get me wrong, I intend to find out personally what went wrong here, but...
You're right.
I can tell you that you can also go and ask them, in the meantime, like I said, what happened. Because
I know the answer.
Could have got lost on the
I know the
table,
answer.
but not
I know
on
the
the
answer.
table.
The building department won't issue a permit unless they get zoning approval. They don't override zoning.
Well, we're going to find out more about that. Anything else?
Yes. And there was a couple comments about how people were denied and this ordinance was in effect. Let me refresh your guys' memory, because you guys were all around. 2011, the master plan was adopted and voted on, and then 2015, or just prior to 2015, the previous administration, the right side, never adopted the township ordinances to match the master plan. So there was a 2-week window that the former mayor, Anthony, and the council said we go back to the blue book. But they had an emergency meeting, and after those 2 weeks, they put it back to 7,500 square feet. But some of those houses that were approved during this 7,500 rule fell under that time frame, because that's when the application comes in. When the application comes in, it's got to go by the ordinance that's in effect. And then there was a comment about on 11th Street, a house with 45 feet. Let me educate you the history there. There was a subdivision of that property, and in the deed, it said that 45 by 100 was a buildable lot. So it couldn't be denied. The zoning officer did their homework, because the zoning officer would never go against the ordinance, the one that I know. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else? All right, I just want to make a quick statement here, too.
Can we make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting?
No, I would like to do it during the public portion. Can I? Can I, Mr. David?
I guess.
Well, thank you very much. Because I wanted to recognize two things, and I like it during the public portion because I want the public to hear this. It's basically to our new council liaison, Mr. Lopez. He was ill tonight, he couldn't be here, but I'm very much looking forward to meeting him and to welcoming him aboard. And really, I know he's going to do a fantastic job, and he brings in another dimension with his background. But I also want to take a minute to recognize Robert Shelkey. Robert Shelkey, he came a long way with us, and I really miss the guy. He was always right here for the board, right on top of the council. When we needed something, he was right there. And if Mr. Lopez does 50% of what Mr. Shelkey has done, we're going to be all right. So I just wanted to say that to the public out there. Maybe it's a little out of course, but I really miss the guy. I think he's a wonderful man. That's it. You could close now if you like.
I make a motion to close the public comment period.
All in favor of that? Everybody, you made the motion, Mr. Grimaldi second. All in favor?
Yep.
Okay.
And if you would like, I will make a motion to adjourn. Sorry.
We have comments for the good? From us or from the board?
What's that?
Do we have comments?
Is that?
Well, we went past that. We were right, that was number 10.
Now, I would just like to make sure that, you said you're going to find this out personally. I need for all of us to find this out, how that happened.
Well, it looks like Mr. O'Brien has his hand up.
I'll look into it the first thing in the morning. In fact, I've already sent a communication on it.
Thank you. I was waiting for that response, and there it is. All right?
Motion to adjourn.
Made by Mr. David, seconded by Mr. Ladati, and half by Mr. Grimaldi. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, this was fun.